Good morning. Good afternoon, sir. I'm Jan Posiman from BSMT-10. In the case of GR number 222430, a maritime labor dispute involving Transglobal Maritime Agency and Vicente D. Chua Jr. The duty framework is based on the idea that ethics is about doing one's duty regardless of the consequences. In this framework, what matters is fulfilling one's moral obligation and responsibilities. Now, let's look at the case Vicente D. Chua Jr. was a seafarer employed by Transglobal Maritime Agency, and during his employment, he sustained an injury. He claimed that his injury was work-related and sought compensation. However, the company disputed the claim, arguing that the injury was not within the scope of his employment duties. The question before the court was whether the company had a duty to provide compensation under the contract and maritime law. Applying the duty framework to this case means focus on the moral and legal obligation of the parties involved. First, let's look at the company's duty. The company Transglobal Maritime Agency has a contractual and legal duty to ensure the seafarers and well-being of its employees. Including seafarers like Chua, maritime law often imposes an obligation to provide medical treatment and compensation for work-related injuries. From a duty framework perspective, the ethical question isn't whether compensating Chua would have a positive or negative consequence for the company, but whether the company is fulfilling its contractual and legal obligation to him. The duty exists independently of the outcomes. Next, consider Chua's duty as a seafarer. As an employee. Chua has a duty to perform his job safely and within the scope of his employment. If the injury occurred during the performance of his duty, the company has an ethical obligation to compensate him. Ultimately, under the duty framework, if the company had an obligation under maritime law to compensate injured worker, it should honor that duty, even if it lead to financial loss or other negative consequence for the company. In this case, the court ruled in the favor of Vicente Chua, stating that his injury was work-related and the company had a duty to provide compensation under the law. This aligns with the duty framework because the court upheld the company's moral and legal obligation to take care of its employee. By honoring its duty, the company maintains its ethical integrity regardless of any negative impact on its finances. The operation decision reinforces the importance of fulfilling one's obligation as required by both contract and moral principles.